Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani discussed the evolving security situation in the region and other areas of mutual and bilateral interest on Monday. During a phone call, the two also exchanged Eid ul Adha greetings. Now, President Ghani thanked Prime Minister Modi for timely supply of food and medical assistance to meet Afghan requirements. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's commitment to the people of Afghanistan in their quest for a peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive Afghanistan. The phone call happened as reports said Afghan forces retook a prison in the country's east a day after the Islamic State terrorist group attacked the facility in which at least 29 people were killed. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the evolving security situation in Afghanistan. Joining me on the program today are Vivek Karju, former ambassador, Shakti Sinha, foreign affairs expert, and Major General Shashi Asthana, retired strategic affairs expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador, let me start the program with you. It's been a while since we've discussed Afghanistan in the midst of the pandemic. Of course, there are so many other things that the world is concentrating on, but that doesn't mean that things haven't developed in Afghanistan. What do you make of all the latest security related incidents in Afghanistan?
Uh, Frank, the main theme in Afghanistan is what will happen between the Afghan authorities and the Taliban. The violence is, of course, there. The violence is being undertaken by the Taliban to an extent and also by ISIS or the Islamic State. And the Taliban have, as far as I can see, undertaken actions to show that they are in the field and that they have the capability of taking on the Afghan forces. Now, as you are aware, the beginning of the talks is stuck on an issue relating to prisoner releases. My own assessment is that unless talks begin, the security situation will continue to be very, very difficult. And what I often ask myself, is there an alternative before the Afghan authorities but to begin talks with the Taliban? I'll just take half a minute more. The objective situation is that the Americans have decided that they will withdraw. The agreement was signed way back in on February 29. This is a bipartisan approach on the part of the Americans, whether Trump wins the election or does not, whether Biden comes in, Americans will not stay there anymore. I don't think that Biden will reverse this agreement. Maybe he will tinker around with it. I don't see him coming back into Afghanistan with any large forces. Yes, support for the Afghan authorities in Kabul will continue. But the last point I'll make is that as of now, the Taliban are in a position of strength. That is a fact. Now, that doesn't mean that the Afghan forces can be rolled over. As long as American support is there, they will be in the field. But the Taliban have the wind behind them. That is a fact. And therefore, we've got to assess any situation from this perspective. I'm not happy saying this, but I don't see this as anything but the objective reality.
All right, couple of aspects that I would like to take forward from what the ambassador has just said. One of them, of course, before we talk about the Taliban, General, let's talk about the Islamic State and everything that they've been doing off late in Afghanistan. It certainly seems like the focus has shifted from West Asia to now Afghanistan, and they seem to have made Afghanistan or are trying to make Afghanistan their new home where they can operate out of. How much of a concern is the rise of Islamic State in Afghanistan?
Firstly, the Islamic State is a reality. They are there there to show their strength. Secondly, the there have been a number of peace spoilers in addition to the peace talks which happened and which we discussed last time as well. Now, any foreign understand, and also India wants that it has to be an elected Afghan-led government, and intra-Afghan dialogue is a must. And as Ambassador mentioned, that for intra-Afghan dialogue, the prisoner exchange is the last point, I think, which is stuck, because some of the prisoners are they are the ones who have created grave, shall we say, they have created grave incidents, and therefore their release is a problem. At the same time, I must also mention that all these terror groups are linked with each other. This linkage, I was talking last time also, that this is important. The IS who has recently been elected happens to be from Pakistan and happens to be from Haqqani network. There is also, shall we say, the linkage between Haqqani, LET, Taliban, as far as the TTP is concerned. Now, all these terror groups sharing training facilities, they are also sharing the logistics. Taliban, when the prisoner attack took place, bulk of the prisoners happened to be from Taliban. The prisoners who have fled away, I think a number of them are from Taliban. Although Taliban has denied and IS has accepted it, but this does not mean that Taliban has no hand in it. Secondly, Taliban leadership, their agenda, and the Taliban cadre agenda. Because Taliban leadership may give you an impression that they are for a free society and they are more liberal. But their cadre doesn't think so. A recent input has come wherein it has been clearly mentioned that in Taliban-controlled areas, there is a restriction to people on mobile as well as on music. Now, this is the state of Taliban, and therefore the cadres are going to drive their leaders towards Sharia law. So I don't visualize that Taliban is going to be as moderate as we think it to be. But as Ambassador mentioned, intra-Afghan dialogue is a basic prerequisite, and without that, nothing can happen in Afghanistan. And as far as peace is concerned, it is becoming important. I will take my turn later as far as the strategic aspect is concerned, because there is another player, which is China. And that major aspect of the strategic picture, which emerges after China's entry into Iran and after our entry getting slightly hindered into Afghanistan, there is a different picture.
In just a bit, but let's talking about the parties involved in Afghanistan itself. Let's not look at the external factors, Shakti Sinha. Let's look at the internal factors. Taliban, Islamic State, the Afghan government, several other players in Afghanistan. Are we looking at a possibility sometime in the near future when the Americans withdraw completely that all these internal parties are going to have to fend for themselves?
Because as Vivek very rightly pointed out, the United States is clear. In fact, Biden and Vice President had advised getting out of Afghanistan, saying we'll do counter-terrorism, counter-insurgency is not our business. In other words, Taliban is your problem, not mine. Al-Qaeda is my problem only. So USA is getting out. And therefore, it is time for the others to really get their act together and not dilly-dally. I'll just go back to one thing on violence levels. High-profile violence has gone up, no doubt about it. If I look at the actual violence figures, and the United Nations Assistance Mission report has just come out of 6 months, the first 6 months of the year has been the lowest level of violence in 2012. It's actually lower than 2011 also. It's 40% lower than 2016, 17, 18. Last year it fell, this year it has fallen even more. So, within Afghanistan, this is a reflection that they realize that positioning is important, and therefore high-profile attacks are important. But actually, they realize that you cannot alienate the people too much. And civilian casualties, regrettably, UNAMA report says that civilian casualties are majorly caused by the Afghan national forces, the government forces. So that's a sad development. But now the Afghan entities, the government, not yet got his act fully together, but the Taliban, they have changed their military command structure. They put Mullah Omar San as the head. They changed the negotiating team. And Daesh, the attack by Daesh on the Jalalabad prison and before. So they are positioning themselves so that they can negotiate better in a post situation, because the Taliban has agreed to negotiate with all Afghan sides. So it is not a negotiation of Taliban with the Afghanistan government, but with all Afghan sides. And therefore, it's not going to be easy the way forward, but I think they have to get their act together. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the common citizens of Afghanistan.
Taking the discussion forward now, let's talk about some of the external factors really as far as in Afghanistan. Ambassador, the general raised Pakistan, and we all know Pakistan's role in Afghanistan and what kind of an impact that they have had on the security situation in Afghanistan. What's your take on Pakistan, on the Pakistan angle and the Pakistan's link in Afghanistan, and how is it going to play out?
Look, the Pakistanis think that Afghanistan is their backyard. Their primary purpose in Afghanistan has always been to limit Indian influence. Their relations with an Afghan government have historically been that government willing to listen to them with respect to India. No Afghan government has been willing to accept this Pakistani condition. So I do not see Pakistan's interference diminishing in Afghanistan. It remains to be seen what kind of structure will emerge following talks between the Taliban and the Afghan authorities. Right? They have said that they'll talk to all sections of political groups for the simple reason that they still don't recognize the Afghan government as a government. They think it's an American puppet. So that is the situation. The Taliban have been very, very closely linked with the Pakistanis. They are dependent on Pakistan. They are Pakistani creatures. But my own understanding of Afghanistan and Afghan leadership, whatever be its hue, is that once they are in power in Kabul, and once they have international legitimacy, then the natural syndrome between neighbors starts playing. Let us not forget that the Taliban of the 1990s were absolutely, as a government, quote unquote government, because the legitimate government then recognized by the international community was still that of President Rabbani. And so the Taliban at that stage were crucially dependent in their external personality on Pakistan. Whatever emerges now, and it will be a very, very difficult process, because ideologically and theologically there are major differences between different groups. But whoever emerges, I personally think might show the reflexive Afghan tradition of trying to steer clear of regional debates, even though the normal reflex of the Taliban will be, at least for some time, pro-Pakistan. So that is why I have been of the opinion that in this entire situation, we have to play our cards very, very adroitly while maintaining our links, close links and cooperative links with the Afghan authorities. We should not neglect other players, including the Taliban.
All right, we'll come to, what are India's options and what India should do in the last segment of the program. Before that, let's talk about the other external factors as well. General, you raised China in your opening remarks. Let's talk about China. China has been trying to engage and trying to influence things on the ground in Afghanistan for some time now. Recently, China also had this dialogue with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nepal as well. So what do you make of all of this?
See, Chinese agenda is very clear, that it has to be China-centric region, and therefore their prescription to all these three countries, that is Nepal, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, was that you follow the Pakistan model. That means don't talk about COVID, don't talk about Xinjiang, accept Belt and Road Initiative, accept our idea of joining you with Iran, and subsequently getting on to the to all the ports and getting the warm water access through you, and being able to work out with you the so-called shared destiny, which in other words is Chinese destiny and exploitation of Afghanistan resources. Now, this is their Chinese idea. Now, in this particular case, they have moved a step ahead, because deal with is certainly restrict the movement or elbow space of India in that region, because Iran had a compulsion to get on to fall back to China because of the economic issues and some other issues. India had a compulsion because we had to follow the United States. We had to go ahead with the United States for a simple reason, because Iran, notwithstanding our good relations, notwithstanding our Chabahar and all other things, the problem was that Iran cannot help you against China, and China is the threat as of today. It is the number one threat. And the only people who can help you in some manner, whether by intelligence or by any other means or by maritime means, is USA. So, and oil was the only other attraction as far as Iran is concerned. There are options available for oil, though costly ones. But notwithstanding that, we took a call and we have taken a call. But notwithstanding that, Iran is very less critical of us. Iran understands the situation of India, and Iran, we are not totally out as far as Chabahar is concerned. So that access is already there. And bulk of the Chinese influence in Iran is also more on, I would put it this way, that it's more of securing their energy security. Bulk of the money goes there. Now, but the fact is that this strategic space of Afghanistan has been now contested very strongly by China. And with American view of moving out another 4,000 troops from Afghanistan, this strategic space is going to go to China unless we play our cards well. Now, when we say we play our cards well, what is the option? The option is we will have to work out with the United States. They will have to give us some concessions. It's okay that they have a problem with Iran. We understand that. But the problem is that even for United States to have this area under control, India at least must get an access to Afghanistan. And that access is only possible through Iran. And therefore, Iran-India access will have to be accepted by USA, and we will have to do some smart diplomacy on that. Secondly, regarding Pakistan, and I'll just touch upon one point. You would have seen this issue on Durand Line. The firing took place. They killed innocent people, used RT barrage, and later when asked, Pakistani gave an excuse that it was for self-defense. Obviously, it can't be a self-defense against innocent people. And you fire RT shells for that. The reason is very simple. Pakistan wants to now fix the Durand Line, whereas Afghanistan does not agree with Durand Line because it divides Pashtuns. That's the basic problem with which Afghanistan doesn't want to accept. Whether Taliban was in power, is in power, or in power in future, whichever is the government in Afghanistan, they won't accept that. So this has been a general nationalistic feeling of Afghanistan, irrespective of who is in chair. Pakistanis have also been trying. The UN, there is a UN report to say 600 plus Pakistani terrorists exist in Afghanistan. So this is another interference.
Let's bring in another aspect now and talk, taking the points that the general was making forward with you, Shakti Sinha, about Iran. And where does this leave Iran really? Because Iran has been a big player in Afghanistan for some time now. They've had historical linkages as well. But looking at what has happened with the United States and Iran, Qatar, and all the other things, where does this leave Iran in the Afghan situation or the Afghan scheme of things?
See, Iran has been tactically positioning itself, not strategically, tactically in Afghanistan for quite some time. While the Taliban was in power, Taliban was seen as anti-Shia. There was trouble with the Shias, and a lot of Shia refugees went to Iran. Iran then funded the Shia militant groups against those days. Now, the times have changed now. And in fact, when the USA-Taliban war took place, Iran actually supported the Taliban tactically, ammunition, shelter, other stuff to them. Not because they love for Taliban, but they need to embarrass the United States. Now, in the present scenario, the way things are moving, Iran is economically in a very bad shape. They're really gasping for air right now, which is why the deal which President Rouhani is supposed to sign with China, they can't even make it public. It's obviously a one-sided deal which the Chinese are pushing down their throat. Majlis in Iran is against it. But Iran being financially weak is not a good sign again, because the person who's financially weak, a country like Iran, which sees itself as a long civilization, etc., the French of the East, etc., they see themselves as financially weak. They were sort of desperate. They were active with the Taliban. In tomorrow's Afghanistan, as the peace process picks up, if it does, we all hope it does as friends of Afghanistan, if they pick up, Iran can then pay the spoiler by activating their old interests of the Wahadat and others. So that's not a very good development in the sense of Iran cornered. So or some ways of sorting out Iran is very required, because Iran shares the language, and the culture. So Iran's ability to do damage inside Afghanistan is very substantial. And that somehow gets ignored a lot of times, and which is what really worries me.
Okay, time now to get closing comments from all my guests. Let's talk about India and what India's options are as well in Afghanistan, because we are heavily invested in Afghanistan and we are also, interested in peace in the region and peace in Afghanistan as well. Ambassador, starting first with you.
Look, the evolving situation in Afghanistan requires very adroit handling by India and requires also a ruthless realism to see the situation as it is, not as we want it to be. We cannot afford to put all our eggs in the government basket. We must support the government in every way. We have a strategic partnership and we must continue to support it. But we must see what is the evolving chessboard. And the chessboard is that the Americans are withdrawing. They have shown they don't want that Afghanistan should again become a center from which American interests can be harmed, especially the interests on the mainland. Short of that, they have really very little interest left. They are exhausted. It's been 19 years this year to their involvement. In this situation, there is violence continuing. We must build our links with our traditional friends in Afghanistan, continue with the government, and finally, as I have been pleading for a long time, we must accept realism and open up links with the Taliban. Now, that does not mean that we should endorse what the Taliban is doing or even like them. But this is how the diplomatic game is played. And my last point, yes, of course, the ISIS is a factor. And the ISIS will remain a factor for some time. But I'm not quite sure how big a factor it is. I take the point that General Saab has made of cooperation between terrorist groups. But let us not forget that ISIS and the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in particular, are fighting for the same turf. So there is some leakage of Taliban fighters and other fighters into the ISIS camp. But the ISIS today is, to my mind, capable of creating spectacular attacks, etc. But how much of the mind space of the Afghan people they occupy is a major question mark in my mind.
All right, points well taken. General, best way forward for India.
Okay. Firstly, I totally agree that we should be speaking and have talks with all the stakeholders, number one. Number two, let's not discount this factor of ISIS again, I'm saying again, for the simple reason, because United States interest, and I've heard General Nicholson and I've heard those people, their contention was very clear that the situation should not, these terrorist groups should not become strong enough to hit the mainland. If ISS is left given the elbow space, the fact that Turkey has also hit on Kurds, they've got a free elbow space right from Iraq, even till Syria. Strong. And if IS, Al-Qaeda, Haqqani network all put together, there is a possibility that they can be a threat to the mainland of United States. This is something which we have to tell United States, and that is what can give us concession for having a good relations with Iran and accessibility to Afghanistan. Because unless we have that, our international north-south transport corridor, which is our main interest, that is under threat. And so is our main interest is Chabahar. Now, both the investments will go down the drain if we do not have this smart diplomacy to achieve this. So therefore, I feel that we must take it as a real threat. It's not that when we talk of realism, yes, ISS is also a part of realism. And therefore, we must continue. And I, even earlier also, I disagreed on this issue. And today you see the ISS has attacked, and there have been number of attacks of ISS thereafter. And Taliban is also present in the same space. And Taliban's promise to say that, okay, I will ensure that no terror attacks takes place in this soil. Where is that assurance? It doesn't happen just like that. So let's not underestimate it. Let's play it realistically in all forums without bias.
Okay, and Mr. Sinha, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah. Governments come, governments go, countries remain. India and Afghanistan are friends. We share common interest. Friends, otherwise also. We share a lot of common interest. And therefore, as in the past, the Mujahideen in the area of the Soviet occupation were seen as pro-Pakistani forces. When they came to power, they reached out to India, realizing that the two can work together and should work together. So we should not close any options. We like democracies. We shore up democracies. We should do that. But the Afghan constitution, even today, says they can have no law which is inconsistent with Sharia. The Taliban says more or less the same thing. So I'm not saying the two are the same. The two have differences, but they'll both broadly operate under the Sharia principle. Seeing that, we should be open to working with, while not internal positions. That is their problem. That is not our problem. I don't like them, like Vivek, but that is for the Afghan people to decide what they want, what they don't want, not for us to tell the Afghans, this is good for you, this is not good for you. That is how not India works. And I think India and Afghanistan have to work together in the future also.
I think that's a very valid point that you made, that, you know, India does not interfere in the internal politics of our neighbors, and that's how we should keep it, and that's how it should be. On that note, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that we need to build on links with our traditional friends, engage with all the stakeholders in Afghanistan. Islamic State is a factor, but it may not be as big a factor as it was in Syria and elsewhere in West Asia, as what the panelists are suggesting. The Taliban has emerged as the real big player in Afghanistan, and the Taliban and the Islamic State are fighting for the same spaces. IS can cause big damage, but may not have the needed impact in the hearts and minds of the people of Afghanistan. We have to be smart, that is India, and be diplomatically nimble and adept and evolve with the situation. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.